I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity Legacy Partners. And let me tell you, this is going to be an amazing session today. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is going to be such an awesome, podcast for Legacy Partners is because if I don't tell you it's awesome, you might not know it. And so, if you're a woman, you're going to be offended. I'm just giving you a heads up. You're going to be offended if you're a woman. It's okay. Like, don't, this is comedy at its finest. Okay. Um, so Adam, um, we were talking in the pre-show about how you went ahead and weren't able to do something because you had uh college classes or something, correct?
Yes, correct.
But that wasn't an excuse though.
Yeah, that was just go ahead
So it
for
was an
being con
excuse that you were using, or it wasn't an excuse.
it it wasn't.
It wasn't an excuse. So, um, Adam, do you think you're a woman?
No.
So, women, when they come up with reasons why they're not able to do something, I accept them because they're women. So, women can come up with reasons and they're not excuses. Why? Because the woman says it's not an excuse. So, whatever she says, I was talking to my son, he and I were on vacation. So, Adam, isn't it interesting what you say to my wife?
About y yesterday.
Well, I don't know when it was you said something to her, something about like
Um.
Mark is on when he's
Yeah.
on vacation,
He's a
he's
machine.
a machine. Yeah. So he's when he's on vacation, he's still on the calls when he's
Yeah.
his on Christmas, which is, a very major holiday in America and a very major holiday for Christians, so it's a
Mm.
major holiday and he's still on. And on his son's wedding, he was on too. Um,
Yes.
and so you were admiring that, or I don't know, something. You were at least aware. And so, see, Adam, so yesterday or last week, this week I was on vacation with my son Ben, and it's so interesting because I introduced him to the concept of GW. Now, in America, somebody might think that's George. Um, well, it's George Washington, I guess, but it's not. It's God or women. So, women, I made the observation a few years back that women have a God complex. When I told him that, he started laughing. He says, like, what do you mean? I said, women can give birth, and so therefore they think they're special. They're more special than men because they can give birth to a child. So they have this God complex. I can give birth to a child. It's okay. If I was a woman, I'd probably have the same complex. Like, I'm like God, like I can give birth. Um, and so they think, Adam, that when they say something, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Does this remind you of anyone, Adam?
No.
It reminds me of you, Adam. Like I said, you know, when I asked you about something and you came up with an excuse, and I said, oh, so you're making an excuse. And you said it's not an excuse. I say it's an excuse, but you say it's not. Who's right, you or me?
Might might be you.
Well, it might be. Probably not, though, because you have GW. You're God or women. So, if
No, I'm not.
argue
Not
with
both of
God
them.
and I don't argue with women. But young men, I might go ahead. If I'm saying it's an excuse, you know what? It might be an excuse. You follow?
Yeah, I follow.
Yeah. See, if you come up with a good reason in your own mind, do you have any? How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. Do you know what I was doing when I was 22, Adam?
Mm, running a company.
I was that. Do you know what else I was doing, Adam?
Studying in a college.
What's that?
Studying in a college.
Yeah, I was in college. I was taking classes. I was taking 18 credit hours, and so I was in college running a company, had a job. I was married. I was doing volunteer work. I was doing all of those things, Adam. And so, you know,
Hmm.
for me, if a woman marries a really good guy, man, that's awesome because he's going to cover a lot of her stuff. I mean, if you ask Rosanna, she will say that. She'll say, Mark covers a lot of my stuff. He just does.
Yes, I just want to do these kind of thing that you were doing in your
Well, you got
20s.
to change the way
So
you
how
think,
can,
Adam. You
yeah,
got to change the way you
mm,
think. You're not thinking well.
mm,
You're thinking like a woman thinks. And again, a woman can think
okay,
that way. Why? Because she's a woman. Okay.
mm,
Men don't have the luxury
mm,
of being able to think like that. Now, again, women,
mm,
this is comedy. I'm not laughing, but I could be. You know, you could get mad. And if you want to get mad, I mean, just think about it. I mean, my mom, one of the closest people in the world to me, she would get mad when I'd say stuff like this. But then she'd come back a couple of days later and she'd say, Mark, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. Like
mm,
you'll notice, Cheryl, in Coffee Connections, when I when I when I how I treat women very different than I treat men. Like when a woman comes up with a reason, I typically won't challenge her. I won't say that's an excuse.
Right.
Why? Because I don't want the drama. I don't want all the women ganging up on me.
mm,
I don't want all the women coming together. Like if I go ahead and say something that a woman doesn't like, all the women will come together and gang up on me. And then and it's fine because then I'll just take all 10 of the women out at the same time and say, ladies, like I'm just saying, like we get into pay disparity. Do you think it's because you have more reasons than men do for why you can't do things? Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's true. Do you think, like, if I take time off, do you think it's going to impact my ability to make money? Like, if I take time off, like, is that something society or Mark ought to pay for all the women that take time off for their kids? I mean, I did for my wife, but should I do it for all the women in the world? Like, again, and so, Adam, you know, if you're a
mm,
young man and you think like a woman, it's not going to be well for you. Like,
mm.
women are not going to be attracted to you. I
Okay,
mean,
you're right.
maybe there might be a few that might be dominant, might be controlling, but she might be able to go ahead and she might be able to provide for you and you might be able to stay home with the kids. There's nothing wrong with that. My youngest sister's a medical doctor and that's what her husband does. They have three girls and he homeschools the girls and he's a stay-at-home dad, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, women like to get dramatic and say Mark's sexist and this. It's like, I don't know. I observe human nature and I see human nature. So women in business, when you own your own company, there are a lot of disadvantages of being a woman. I try to even that out and make it to where you don't have the disadvantages. Um, but there are a lot of advantages in being a woman too. In today's society, this is one of the reasons young people are having such a big challenges, I think, with gender identity is because they see that, women have a lot of benefits. Well, they do, but they have some downsides. Well, I want all the benefits a woman has and I want all the benefits a man has. That's just delusional. Like it's just delusional. That's not going to happen. So in legacy partners, I'm just saying, you want to make money, you want to retire before you're 90, you've got to get more consistency and discipline. And the way the brain works, this is brain science. I'm just telling you, it's brain science. It's the ability to not allow reasons, to look at reasons and say they're excuses. Now, this is hard mentally, emotionally. Now, what you can do is, Cheryl, do you know what assignment you were given on Coffee Connections? a few Saturdays ago or whatever that you have not followed through on?
A few Saturdays ago,
I
or
don't
just
know,
last Saturday?
the last coffee connection. Do you remember what assignment you were given?
Yes, I was given an assignment to email you every day.
Okay. And how long do you think that would take?
Not long.
So if you put a number on it, it helps you.
Okay, but what am I supposed to email you?
Okay. So are you familiar with when you're in school, okay, and you don't know what to do, what do you do?
I asked the teacher.
Okay. And who's the teacher in this situation?
You are.
And so do you think it would be better to email me that question or to ask on the Saturday call this question?
Probably email you.
And so you know all the answers. You're just not asking yourself the right questions. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, because I did not go ahead and give you the answer to that question. All I did is ask questions. See, Albert Einstein said, you can never solve a problem at the level it was created. What does that mean? It means we create all our own problems. We just do. That's taking ownership. And
Right.
so the problem we have, you not knowing what to email me is not the problem. I mean, the problem is you're not asking yourself the best questions. What you're doing is subconsciously, you're coming up with like almost a reason not to go ahead and succeed. It's okay. That happens to all human beings. You're a human being, it happens. So what you do is you just ask yourself better questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I don't care what you email me, doesn't matter, because what I'm trying to do is help you to build disciplines and consistency. So you get down disciplines of emailing every single
Right.
day, 6 days a week. That builds consistency, that builds disciplines.
Okay.
Adam, I get you to where you don't come up with excuses. Well, I have college. See, what
Okay.
I can do, Adam, is
Hmm.
I can say, Adam, how many minutes do you have in a week?
Hmm. Thousands of minutes.
You
I'm not
have
sure how many.
10,080 minutes a week.
Right.
So what I can do is I can just say to you, Adam, like, how many minutes were you in college? So I can assure you that so what I would do is my kids gave me excuses, both my boys and my girls. It seems to me that girls' excuses tend to be better than boys, meaning that they get accepted more. This is not healthy for girls, from my perspective. It's just not. I expect more from men as a legacy partner than I do women. You might say,
Hmm.
Mark, that's not fair to women. I would have to say, I agree. So why do you treat women worse than you do men? So if women say, Mark, you treat women worse than you do men, I would say, I have to agree. But it's not how women think I do. It's because I'm not as hard on women as I am on men. I'm just not. It's almost impossible for me to do that. So I can't treat my 4 daughters like I do my 3 sons. I can't treat my wife like I do other men or myself. I can't, because it's ingrained in me from a very young age, or maybe it's part of a DNA makeup. Mark, you cannot push
Hmm.
women as hard as you do men. And unfortunately, that hurts women in business. It just does. Like in the jungle, a tiger, a lion doesn't care if it's a male or female. They eat whatever they catch. They
Hmm.
just do.
Yes.
Business is jungle. It's just a jungle.
Hmm.
Yes, it's true that there are some benefits to some women owned organizations. So if you're a woman owned organization, you do get benefits, but it's with the government and there's always strings attached. And so I don't know. Maybe I'd have talked to my brother Dan about that. That'd be interesting. He might be able to give us some insight on women-owned businesses. I mean, he's a man, a white male over 50. That's another story. So, Adam, it's an excuse. You have 10,080 minutes. Look at all of your time, where your time is going. So, Adam,
Yes.
is there a podcast for time down here in the specific topics? Doesn't look like there's, a time. So I thought we had a time tracking with Kenny, but maybe I'm wrong. And so, but people, even when they're trained in how to do something time wise, time budgeting, even when they're trained in that, they typically won't do it. They just won't. And so, why? Because it's discipline. So, Cheryl, I really admire Cheryl because she calls a spade a spade. She's like, I struggle with consistency. Cool. I can help her. If she gets the 9 Ds, if she gets defensive or angry or upset at me, well, then she's not going to learn. And she doesn't. She's okay with, to some degree, she's okay with my humor, which is a bit strange. And so, but Adam, I'm just telling you, it's an excuse. If I say it's an excuse, it's probably good.
Mm,
Now, that doesn't mean that you should go ahead. You need to learn how to do both. I learned how to do both. I
mm,
learned how to go ahead and work, a full-time job, a part-time job, go to school full-time, be married, and volunteer. I learned how to do that. You and I have the same amount of time every day, which is 1,440 minutes.
yes.
We have the same amount of
Right.
time, 10,080 minutes. So I don't have to
Yes.
be as disciplined, as consistent as I am, probably. But I've been this way since I was a little boy because my parents, both my mom and my dad, man, they taught me discipline and consistency and not making excuses and not using school as an excuse, not using children as an excuse, not using anything. It's like, you know what? You've got to perform every single day if you're going to have the freedom of owning your own company. You just do. Any specific?
Okay.
So, Adam, in this specific topic, you need to go ahead and talk about, like, you need to give it a title, Adam, and then you need to go ahead and, is this consistency? Is it mental toughness? Something down here in topics. So people run into challenges. They just do. Especially, everybody's probably been an employee. As an employee, you can get away with murder. You cannot show up. You can come up with excuses, and your boss probably isn't going to go ahead and say, it's an excuse. Like, you go ahead and say, I'm sick. I've got classes, I've got kids, I've got health, I've got whatever I've got. It's interesting. The day after my dad died, I was working. Ken Bucci went ahead and said, didn't your dad die yesterday? I'm saying, he did. And he's like, you're working today? And I said, I am. And he's like, wow, you're insane. I'm like, not really. My dad, he was a hard worker. I jokingly say, but I'm fine with it. Like, when I die, my wife and kids can mourn for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. And give me a little bit of time and then get back to work. That's how my mom and dad were. They were just hard workers. And so Adam, if you go ahead, and anybody listening to this, when you come up with a reason, it's an excuse. It just is. It just is. Now,
Okay.
that reason may be okay in that situation to go ahead and deal with it. It's okay. Like, it's okay to go ahead and take some time off. It's okay. But don't, if you're more disciplined and more consistent, you're going to be more successful. You just will. So when
Right.
my dad died, I was at Coffee Connection, and the guy was surprised on how, like, he was in the midst of dying. We got a call. My wife got a call, and they said my mom was alive, and she was his primary caregiver. And I thought my wife went ahead and said, your dad just died. But what she said is, your dad is very close to death. And if if she had said, if I had heard her say properly, your dad is close to dying, I'd have been out of there instantly. But when I thought she said, your dad's dead, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take another 3, 4, 5 minutes to go ahead and wrap up this, make sure everything's covered. So when I'm gone, well, we got stuck behind a train, and then I went there and he died minutes before I got there. And my mom was there alone, which was okay, you know? I mean, and so the next week, when we were talking about that at Coffee Connection, Kevin King said, it's just amazing, Mark, how you think. So even about death, like Vera from Russia after Jonathan, my son, died. She's like, do you know why you've healed so quickly from his death? I'm like, no, why? She said, you look at death very differently than other people. I said, really? How is that? And she said, because you don't look at Jonathan as dying, as being dead. I knew what she meant. He's definitely physically dead. And so I said to Kevin King, I said, when your life vision is bigger than death, you get over stuff. Even the death of your dad and your mom, and even the death of your son, because your life vision. And so, stop procrastinating and here's vision. Okay. So do we have the vision where people can get to it? Yeah, right here. Cool. So this one right here, if you haven't done this, so when you go ahead, people aren't going to call you out for your stuff. Not even me. I'm getting less and less because I'm a grandfather. So any questions, Cheryl, on this particular lesson before we finish up this podcast on consistency and discipline? There's a white paper library, Adam, that we want to include in this. And so there's a whole series of white papers that you guys ought to go through. Like it's crazy. And so there'll be a link right around here to do this. And so there's a white paper library, and this white paper library will help you. What's the difference between what you're earning now and what you'd like to be earning? It's how you think. Everything connects back into how we think. And so the first white paper is WIFM. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? It's the concept of being selfless selfishly, or selfishly selfless. And then number 2, interesting, isn't it? Consistency and commitment. If we're not consistent with something, the truth is we're not committed to it. I mean, we eat every day. Why do we eat every day? Because we're committed to eating. Like, you don't not eat because you go ahead and, had college courses. Number 3 is drive and discipline. Number 4 is clear communication. Number 5 is success through self-vaporization. Number 6 is best student in the world and everything. So hopefully this has been helpful to each person viewing this and being able to go through it and take it and apply it. It takes a while for our brains to adjust to our new way of thinking. If we're in our 20s, we've been thinking this way maybe for 20 years. If we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, we've been thinking the way we've been thinking for X number of years. It's not that what we're thinking is wrong. It's not that. There's a better way of thinking. But that better way of thinking, in my experience, is always hard work. It's just hard. It's hard to think differently. It's easy, Adam, to think I've got an excuse as to why I'm not doing it. Your parents and probably your peers and everybody else probably accept the excuse of school. So you learn, I'm going to use the excuse of school. I have a huge heart for single moms. I can't imagine a harder job in the world. I mean, it's just crazy. But single moms use being a single mom as an excuse, as a reason. They just do. Moms do, like my kids. And again, I'm not a mom. I'm not a wife. You know, I think every wife needs a wife. I mean, women, they get, they get a lot of stuff. They just do. Their husbands, you know, they depend on their husbands a lot, and husbands often, you know, they say they're committed to helping their wife start a business, but are they really? Like, do they really help them? I don't know. Some husbands do, some don't, you know, and so the kids, the kids go ahead, and the mom has all kinds of guilt. Like, men don't have enough guilt, I think, and women have too much guilt or misplaced guilt, maybe. Anyways, that's another podcast for another time. Hopefully, this has been helpful. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Make sure you manage up and out to the people you're working with. Your art mentor and your two art buddies, if you have those, make sure you're sharing it with those. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye bye.